This is Things You Might Have Heard from the Conversation Project. I am Jay Cleveland Payne. This is your home for headline news that are worth chatting about. Today, we're talking about some real breaking news as I was really tying down the stories, the news on issues with the AWS servers and many things running on them being down. We'll talk about quickly because it's developing. Also, we'll have plenty of earworms today. Today, one earworm will be Prince of Thieves in the Temple because of Thieves in the Louvre there, but I'm working on it. And George Santos, oh my George Santos, oh boy, is he back. He's back. Not so glittery, not so sparkly, but he's back. You know, plus 7 other stories that are tied into the past weekend from Friday to this morning. Stories that you deem conversationals and some breaking news things that you didn't have time to digest or just date, but get into the list here. I, Jacob Payne, will bring you these stories for this Monday, as the 20th of October, 2025, and we'll get to those pretty quickly. And I'll remind you very quickly about some housekeeping quickly. That is our home site, our website, our home, which is thingsyoumighthaveheard.com, or more specifically, this is conversationproject.com, where all the things that work, things you might have heard, plus all the other things, background story, or past episodes. Get to know us there, plus the sponsorship links and the other partnership links to be on the fund. And one of the sponsors we will highlight today, Ground News. One thing we've been highlighting for quite some time, one of very happy to be along with to give great news coverage. Even if you don't like our news coverage, they can overcome it with news from all the angles, all the places, all the spots. Let's get into this news thing for this October the 20th. And for you guys, don't care about baseball until October, we're going to open up with some happy, good news because the rest of it's kind of dour and sad and a little odd. So the Blue Jays actually crushed the Mariners last night, 6-2, to force ALCS Game 7, keeping the MLB baseball playoff hopes alive for 2025 for themselves, and the game's running on as the Dodgers await winners. Now, Toronto's offense set the tone early last night with as and driving 3 Blue Jays built-in multi-run cushions. The Mariners cannot erase them. Vladimir Guerrero Jr. launched his 6th postseason homer, tying a franchise mark in recent ALCS narrative around the Blue Jays and away from the Mariners. Rookie Trey Iasavage punched out 7 and dodged 2 bases loaded threats. Seattle's 3 errors, actually applied the damage tonight. Storylines were big for the night, and we're setting up what should be massively popular World Series starting on Friday. The Dodgers are waiting as Shohei Ohtani put on a show a few days back. We didn't get to talk about that one. Striking out people, hitting home runs, doing all the things that he is amazing, making the best guy in baseball, bar none. But right now, we have to wait to see what happens. The Toronto Blue Jays looking for their first pennant since 1993, and the Mariners never won the World Series. So we'll see history happening away, and looks like a great game going forward. Meanwhile, we've covered this in a couple ways. One, we talked about it going into the weekend with the No Kings protest. We have a hot take out there. This we already covered, but this is the chance to talk about it here on Monday because it is a big deal. Sort of a big deal. Trump has shared some bizarre videos with AI, him as King Trump in a fighter jet attacking protesters in New York City, right? New York City adjacent AI world. He posted clips of King Trump piloting a fighter jet and dumping brown sludge, let's say it's crap, on demonstrators that share the visage of doubling as a cultural war provocation going forward. The coverage framed the No Kings jab as an escalation in protests on PR spirals and not necessarily a policy message. We actually spoke about this in a plane gaggle because he's on planes a lot and he gaggles a lot, saying that the No Kings protest was nothing, nobody showed up, no big deal. These people don't represent us. People in frog suits and walking around naked, I guess, bike in Portland, that was a protest, aren't representative of the United States when it's really not representative of him because both other folks in the United States are trying to say we're not represented. Independent outlets actually said the post, along with a string of other mean-forwarded things, were out there to be seen and to be battling what's going on in the No Kings protest. Meanwhile, many protests happen across the nation. Most of them, actually, no real reports of anything else or violence. There were a lot of costumes, a lot of craziness, a lot of chants, a lot of line dancing, but a lot of people gathered together to do their protest criticism about authoritarianism. And even though the Republicans framed it as anti-American, protesting is what we can do because we are Americans. But wait, there's more. There was actually a lot of Trump adjacent things happening. We're not even talking about the move to take the court, the move to get Chicago back on this course for getting the troops there. That's a whole another thing. That's not making the case. We're talking about this one right here, which popped up sort of a randomish thing, but it shows sort of the petty that's happening and what we are fighting against as a nation to make sure that things are actually rolling out on a fair basis, not just an authoritarian basis. Trump has found in a massive tunnel between New York and Jersey, a project that he calls a wasteful infrastructure boondoggle. He says terminate federal funding for the Hudson River Gateway that is recasting as a long planned mega project as political excess. The New Jerseyans and New Yorkers don't need it. It's just extra money that can use for other things like border patrol, and so they're taken off the table. He says he's taken off the table. Local leaders are blasting the vow as a catastrophic liability for jobs, people working for the thing, and regional outlets so that people move back and forth between the two states and some relief on some of the busiest rail link in America. It's going to help things go better between the two places. Transportation Department officials signal the project aren't officially dead, underscoring the gap between rhetoric and process. To say I'm going to kill it and then after killing it takes a few steps, takes some time. We'll see if Trump can make this one happen. He's made a lot of things go away. This is one that may be a bit harder. Doesn't mean it's not going to happen. The effects of legal and appropriations trench warfare, intended by the robot editor, multi-year grants, bond markets, and permits timelines not pivoting overnight. People are still work on this because it's there to be worked on. The fight becomes now a 26 cycle case that happen to be something that will be in our election cycle next year because federalism and consumers and resiliency and New York, Jersey, MAGA and Democrats and Mandami and all those sort of things. We're going to talk more about this coming forward right now. First pitch, if you will, is out there for this one. We'll see if it continues to be a strike for Donald Trump and his wins, or this one will end up being a strikeout because he keeps this. This is a hard one to cover because it's a bit complicated. So last week, late in the week, there was a live fire event in the Supreme Court covering that. Actually, fired live fire demo actually fired rounds over a major highway in California, which kind of got Governor Newsom upset and freaked people out. What was found as proof of this being kind of dangerous, a shell was apparently detonated prematurely during this campaign, live fire demo, and scattered shrapnel across a CHP vehicle, essentially showing proof that it was dangerous to traffic. No injuries were reported from this, but it kind of showed that this might not be the best idea. Marines halted for the firing and open investigation. The freeway closure for the demo had already drawn criticism because they were trying to be safe about it. But people got to get to work in California. The optics are pretty terrible because Newsom and Hitzit were there to watch the event. Vance's camp defended the showcase as military power, go, go, go. And Governor Newsom thought, yeah, it's a bit excessive and dangerous. Not so much a go. Safe takeaways for the planners were public adjacent demonstrations were also there, raising conceptual risk to even the closures. It was a big open. The coverage actually emphasized Marine Corps' probe into whether the further celebrations are necessary, whether they're going to do more fun things, and whether a show, of course, like this is becoming more of a thing you see in Korea and Russia than what we do around here. Because up until now, we didn't do these things. We're doing them now. All those boats that were blowing up in the Caribbean? The U.S. commander who actually leads the anti-drug boat strikes, leads that program, announced he's retiring after the mission began. Sounds a bit odd. Well, you see the picture of the admiral, Admiral Alvin Halsey. He's the head of Southcom, and he's going to retire at the end of December after overseeing a series of lethal strikes on military drug codes in the Caribbean. The retirement lands amid legal questions about the non-international armed conflict and the rationale behind the operations. This, despite Trump taking all the credit and head step doing all he can to dance go forward with this one, it's actually his problem. It's actually his people that are doing this stuff. It's he's the one that actually ultimately has the answer to these. Hill voice urged Hill's voice urged more transparency on the targeting and the vetting and the evidence for the threshold to show that they're doing the right thing. He's not getting his wishes from his bosses. He's pulling out as quickly as possible. Leadership turnover during escalation campaigns invites scrutiny of why they're doing it, the authorities around it, and some blowback from the region. They will find someone to take this job because they should. There's some money in the wings to take it over even on a temporary basis. The Southcom's posture isn't expected to change immediately. The document debate, of course, will continue on whether it's okay to blow up drug boats, suspected drug boats in the Caribbean. 5 days a week, Monday through Friday, we offer you news stories that are sometimes off the beaten path, mostly things that are just things that got missed because we talked about the big things or some tiny bits and pieces that are going deeper into these that you can't get from the mainstream media. CNN, MSNBC, MS Now, whatever they are, Fox News, those folks, Newsmax, and OAN don't quite get to it because they're too busy yelling at the Democrats for breaking down the government or something. So we give to you, if you like what you're seeing, we need your help so we can grow as a channel and keep this thing going. Like the videos you're watching so that the algorithm sees we're doing good. They will share it with more people and we should grow. I also see that we're doing good. I'm doing good. So I will do more of the things that are good, less the things that aren't so good. It's pretty simple to do that here with ourselves together. We also need you to share it with like-minded people. If you know somebody who is in the know, in the good, likes this type of stuff, share with them. They will engage in it. They will like it as well. It will help us grow the platform for those levels. And if you're not getting me or our videos or our content in a regular content form in your feeds, whether on Facebook, on X, or on YouTube, subscribe to it. We also go to our website, this.com. Subscribe to some other place you can find us. We have a newsletter that is brought to you by Fox. We have podcasts and audio places all over the places. We have shorts that are on the TikTok platform and of course YouTube shorts. So we're all over the place. Where you want to find us, we can be found. We tried to make it easy to find us. Go to our website. This is Conversation. Find the places. We need you to subscribe and like and share and grow the User Nation, all the things we do around here. This story is breaking news. It literally is breaking news. As I was wrapping up this morning, getting into the groove and looking to pull the pictures, add the actual address to the stories this morning, alert came on as CNN was playing on my monitor to my left. Yes, I'm the last person watching CNN this early in the morning about the massive outage for the internet disrupting Amazon, Snapchat, and dozen other websites, apps, and games, which seems to be attached to AWS. Widespread internet outage tied to AWS operational issue at US East 1 in Northern Virginia knocked out and degraded services for Snapchat, Roblox, Fortnite, your Ring cameras, Duolingo, some bank information, and more. Amazon status says increased error rates and latencies are happening. I'm actually looking right now, and there's breaking news right now on CNN at 5:45 p.m. Talking into that one. So this is going to go on for a while. This is not just a blip. This is something that's going to take a few hours to clear, maybe days going forward. Multiple services reporting focusing on DynamoDB API instability, cascading authentication, and app backends. Essentially, all the data that lives inside of AWS is not accessible in the proper way. It's not being pulled down. So what you're trying to do in various things are not happening. Videos, watching something video right now. I'm sorry, expecting things like Roblox and many things that live on AWS servers. If you use this for your work, it can be effective as well. Getting your data for your private APIs, private work there. We shall see what goes on. The complaints really came out early from Downtech reports out of UK banks where they were not getting their issues being affected. And we're going to see how it plays out. Of course, Snapchat, Fortnite, Alexa, Canva, Airtable, Those things are seeing some failed logins due to the outages. There'll be some issues. When I start working on my thumbnails in Canva, we'll see about the breakdown and go back to PowerPoint to do these simple thumbnails, the funny ones. AWS down. You'll sell more on there. There are rumors of a cyber attack, maybe a denial service issue. But right now, we don't have much, or I don't have much because it sounds. We'll know more about this when updates on the way out the door. This story is a long time coming, long time dealing, a long time understanding, if you will, as the Iowa superintendent by ICE after falsely claiming U.S. citizenship. Um, we find more about him. He's apparently not a great guy. In fact, part that the people that vetted him for the Iowa school job, um, the Iowa school boards are basically suing those people who vetted him for finding out that all the lies that he told weren't lies, that they put him in there. Now, the federal indictment actually alleges that the school chief falsely attested to U.S. citizenship with I-9 paperwork, isolated in prosecutions, moving forward. Wills, the superintendent used fraudulent documentation during hiring and benefits enrollment, and officials are scrambling to stabilize operations while the board weighs in. The thing is, there's no actual proof that he was doing great work, which is kind of how things were played out up front. They're like, hey, this guy was doing great work. Why are we sending him back instead of all the killers and murderers and rapists that Trump was sending back? Apparently, he wasn't doing that good of a job at the moment in his, even with his bad credentials, because they were bad. He didn't have the credentials, and he was just sort of sitting there, got a big job, got the benefits, and was just conning folks in Iowa. This highlights how routine HR checks can be issue-ish, problems can be a big problem, and felony territory in false claims are. It seems like it's a small thing to have a little falsehood on your resume. Something that's large is big. Now, he basically lied about visa applications and lied about his CV, which is a lot of things. The board did very poor due diligence to figure out if this was a fraud or not. He essentially is a fraud. So this is one of those things the administration got it right. They did a good thing. And it's so that the folks in Iowa who at first were defending him really screwed up. That's but we will see this one play out as the actual trial goes through. And as mentioned, he's deported somewhere, probably, all places somewhere in like Djibouti, because that's where we're sending folks these days. Another earworm for you for the day is Thieves in the Temple. That is Fright Prince, because Thieves, not quite the Temple, but the Louvre, daring jewel heist, forcing the world's most busy museum to close for a while. The AP reported this. Thieves used a basket lift to access the upper gallery and steal high-value jewels, which triggered a rare full closure of the Louvre to try to figure things out. Investigators are reviewing security staffing levels and camera blind spots and some renovation work to basically get into what's happening. Museum's crisis playbook polarized evacuations and artifact protection over immediate pursuit. What was stolen? Some of the French very valuable tools from past years, and they fear that someone paid for this because they're a rich, evil billionaire who wants to own the private collection of stuff, keep private collections, held hands like this, have a Siamese cat and slap the pet or something like that, or more dangerously, actually. They want to take out the jewels, take out all the special seas, and just melt down the gold and sell it as it is. The museum crisis book does not have a real play for this, other than what's happening as it is. Insurance and province questionnaires, shape and country odds, and restitution for the timeline for things. They actually have a pretty good hint on what's happening. Basically, they used the bucket truck to go into the high levels of the building, looking like workers, stole the stuff off, got out. They do have the jacket of one of the workers who got to have some sort of clue to snip down. But now it's up to security and all the networks of law enforcement can figure out how it happened, who rented out, how they actually worked their schedule to make it work out, how they actually came about to be what it was. Another story that affects me in a couple different ways. One, it means there's less jobs out there for me to pine about and hopefully get in the news, radio, apps, broadcasting. The other is the target. which is hits on the nose, literally. NBC is firing off lots of new staff. They're laying off 150 folks. Jobs are being left. What the key robot editor's actual headline is gutting key diversity and inclusion teams. What's that mean? Trade press and internal sources say NBC cut roughly 150 roles, outsized impact on verticals covering Black, Latino, AAPI, and LGBTQ plus communities. Some of the actual offshoots things covered, uh, let's just say ethnical values, ethnical optics, ethnical type stories were laid off. They coincide with MSNBC's growing separation from NBC News, so that was sort of happening. But the fact that they pulled these away are a little too on the nose for me. Executives cite revenue pressures. Critics call it a retreat from audience coverage. The editorial gap will be there, as there's fewer folks represent beat reports for communities that are underrepresented in mainstream news. So there'll be less stuff for me to pull that will be something that is something that's more of a ethnic story. Things that cover the black stuff and other stuff that gets missed because we're focusing on the main stories. And the main stories are important, but without some actual coverage for some of the marginalized peoples don't get covered. It's really obvious, but there's not a lot of folks going into that, not a lot of focus, not a lot of funding, because it doesn't actually pay as well as something that's more specific. Your knowledge may be. The final story for this morning: George Santos is back. On Friday, President Trump gave George, maybe it was Thursday, George Santos got a commutation. And it's essentially saying, okay, you can go home now. He's still a felon. And we are all are better for it. Well, maybe not. George Santos is better for it. And in an interview on Sunday with Dana Bash, George Santos and Dana had a little bit of a tit for tat based off the federal treatment that Trump is giving him for personal discrimination. He bristled at the question about special treatment from President Trump, telling Bash that even Jesus would have critics, which is kind of true, but we're not talking about Jesus. We're talking about, well, we're talking about Santos, which trans anyway. He cast his early release as a second chance, promising not to disappoint Trump while sidestepping restitution details. The interview became a Rorschach test for how to do these things: contritional language versus grievance speech. Essentially, George Santos came out hot and flaring with plenty of bullets to talk about how Biden and Democrats are bad and Trump is good because Trump put him out of jail, obviously. For folks who are into watching too much media like myself, the Santos Dana Bash clash shows how post clemency narratives harden in hours. It was a story of, wow, Trump let him out. He was like, well, I'm happy with my things. Then he went straight to firing off those bullets to try to figure out what he's going to do. One, he said he's not going to run for office for a while, which is great. Um, Two, I guess he's going back to Cameo because he's literary and glamorous and has to make some money. No word, as we said, what he's going to do for restitution. I think he still has to pay off a good chunk of money. That happens when he actually released, and whatever. He is still a felon. But expect more bookings, more TV spots, more hits, more podcast things as he looks to revive himself and make that money, which you can't fault him. Make that money, George. Make that money. 10 stories given to you this morning from the Conversation Project, from the stuff we do every single day. And it's something that we love to do, and it is a great thing to do. But we can't do it without your help. Number one, we'll talk about the feeds. How you guys help us vote the stories in, vet the stories that you want to talk about, because these are stories that are worthy of talking about, that you want to talk about, not just things that are popping up here or there. AOL obviously is something important, but these are stories that are worth talking about. And sometimes there are stories that get sort of a rough edge or a bad coverage that you have to understand why they got the coverage. We do as well. So we use ground news every single day for various stories, double check how they're being played in various different audiences, so we know how to play them closer down the middle as possible. You get my opinion with these things, but you also get the real facts down the middle. And ground news can help you pick out your stories. What to do? You use the website or the apps on your phone. Android or iOS. And you can see stories, details, headlines, bullets from various stories from various places and understand how the coverage is being taken. Now, you can see a story that you have in a Republican silo and see how the liberals are covering it and vice versa. And you can see using the blind spot feature stories that are literally being siloed away from you by your particular bent of viewing, what the ones don't want you to see and the others don't want you to see, and vice versa. It's very interesting how the news is played. Understand who the actual players are, know more about the sources, know about who funds them, who works them, how they actually lean, and the stories they tend to sell along with the story you're seeing right there. And for a great price, 40% off their plans, our affiliate link will give you that and access to ground news. So check it out like this. Conversationproject.com/ground news. This is conversationproject.com/ground news. One more time with feeling. This is conversationproject.com/ground news. You get 40% off all plans, including an Advantage plan, which gets you less than $10 a month and great coverage with all the information, all the data, so much. This is literally taking news and drinking out of the fire hose and getting all the details you can, understanding what is what, who's who, and how. It does that. Great for you. Check it out. And check out all the sponsors at our website. But today we are spotlighting, putting the big old light there. Our feeds are our links on Facebook and our links on X. Facebook.com/This is Conversation Project, X.com/TH conversation. Every 50 minutes or so, we post news articles so that you can engage in them and you tell us what stories throughout the day are worthy of talking about. So we do this recap, update, update. You have the stories that most people want to chat about, or people want to chat about. We hope we pick the right ones. There's usually 30 or so stories in the span of, or actually, there's leave more stories. Understand about 30 hours a day, and for a weekend, it's 3 days plus a couple hours. There's so many stories to get to. Hopefully, we have the right ones to pick. If not, email us, conversation inbox, gmail.com. Tell us what story we should have covered instead. Also, once again, our website home is this is a conversationproject.com. This is conversationproject.com for the deets, the home, the replays, the information, and more. So other places you can find us. If this is not your bailiwick, you can find those links there as well. We've wrapped up the Monday, October 20th edition of Things You Might Have Heard for 2025. Thank you so much for being a part of us for the day. Thank you so much for the folks that reached out to us. We only got 3 out of 5 days last week. We had some issues wrapping up the week, Thursday and Friday, just literally not being able to get out of bed. It's been an issue and some issues we're dealing with for some personal things and some technical things as well. Slightly technical, but mostly just sort of a not feeling it type of deal. But what we did do in the hot takes we put out there and the extra work we did got plenty of response. You guys are engaged in what's going on, so it's more life, more love, more want to do this stuff right here. So thank you so much for doing it. We'd like to do more time stuff, more drop it stuff. It's not possible. We need your help, need your support to be a partner, need more sponsorship things, everything's going on for things like that. So that's the ask at the end of this very long edition right here. In the meantime, check out our sister site, which is the Conversation Project's Our History Takes. You can see the link in the description where you can see some really big things. This week we did a really long and extremely dry, unfortunately, breakdown of government shutdowns. The last 5 of them, and now that this one at day 20 is the second, and in a few days will be the third. I'm sorry, this is the third. In a few days will be the second longest government shutdown in modern history, basically giving Trump 1 and 2, if you will. It's an interesting fact, interesting thing, how these things work and how these things literally don't work, or how the government and people in the government don't work to have government not work because of funding issues, or just essentially, I want a wall, and so we're going to stop funding for everything. I'm rambling. Go check it out. It's there. It's about 20 minutes long, so it's going to take some investment, but check it out and go deeper in detail on how shutdowns affect us. Not how they work. You know how they work. They just don't open things up. How they affect us and how folks in the past have dealt with the same problems over and over again, without funding at all. That's it. I'm done. Love you much. Mean it so much. I got to go. We're railing today. We'll see you tomorrow, assuming all things are great. And we have power. Who knows? On Tuesday.